Moving on to public comments. This is the time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. We request that you state your name and address, speak respectfully, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to the discussion agenda. Resolution 2020-2110, eminent domain 326 West 6th.
You guys want me to stay seated or go to the, what's easier for you?
I think that's a staff question more than a.
All right, fine, I'll stand up. So, as many of you know, for many years, we have attempted to acquire the property at 326 West 6th Street. For a long time, negotiations were kind of in a standstill, stalled, weren't fruitful. A lot of hard work on Amy's part. They did become a bit more fruitful earlier this year. And at one point in time, it appeared that we had a deal in principle. That deal now appears to be in jeopardy or is really no longer valid. Essentially what has happened is there has just been there's been a demand for a larger sum of money, more than what the home is worth. A lot of time and hours have been expended recently, and I'm sure over the years, trying to come to an agreement with the homeowner. Some other complications had arisen as well as to if he actually has full ownership of the home. When we were doing our homework and looking at the deed, it appears that maybe there are some other people that might have a small percentage of interest in that home. So initially, when we thought we had this home set for sale, we were going to have to do what's called a quiet title action. During a quiet title action, you notice up the folks that may have an interest in the property in the hopes that, well, we didn't know where a lot of these folks were. We were going to have to do it by publication. We're going to have to, long process. Got all of that ready to roll, and that's kind of where everything began to go south. The landowner said, well, I don't want to sign this because I want this much more money. So where we kind of bring ourselves today is, I don't know, did you get any communication with him? Okay. There's really been no more communication with him. We kind of have one of two options at this point in time. If we condemn the structure, which it really and truly probably should have been condemned in all honesty years and years ago, but we don't end up getting the property that it's on. So then we have to look at an eminent domain type of situation, which is something we can do. It will be used for a public purpose and for the public interest, okay? We're gonna construct a parking lot. It's going to benefit the public by doing so. We're gonna install additional lighting, snow removal, car charging station potentially as well. So we do qualify essentially by statute and case law for eminent domain. With that being said, the process of eminent domain is a rather, I don't want to say complicated process, but it is a thorough process, as it should be. It's a government entity taking private property. So I did try to run down kind of an estimated summary, or a summary of the process, an estimated amount of time this is going to probably take. So initially what we have to do today, we can either move forward or, wait to give him a little bit more time, see if he'll sign or if we can get a hold of him. If we decide not to and move forward today, what we would do is I have a resolution drafted. You pass a resolution to start this process. Notably, in that resolution, you ask to procure a land survey of the property. This generally will take until the next meeting to get done. Once we receive that, then we come back and we pass an ordinance that sets out why we believe the property needs to be condemned, or the property condemnation and taking is in the public's interest, and also directing myself as a city attorney to go ahead and file a petition for eminent domain. Then I file the petition for eminent domain. We have to serve all the parties. Now that's where this gets complicated because we don't know where all of these known parties are. So very likely I will have to request permission from the courts to publicize. Generally, if we just don't know who these people are, maybe have an indication as to where their last whereabouts were, court says, okay, we'll just do the best you can with this. Simply because it appears that there may be some other folks that have some interest in it. So if we get through all of that and don't have any issues there, we have a hearing. That first hearing then will probably be, given the fact we'll have to publicize, we're probably looking at 30 days from the filing of petition if we're lucky that we can get in for a hearing. At that first hearing, it's where the court determines if the city has the power and proper purpose for eminent domain. It generally, it is, the big issue a lot of the times in these eminent domain processes are the amount of money that the property should be, that the landowner should be compensated for. So more than likely they'll find that, in fact, that purpose is found, that it's okay that we will, use this process to get this property. Then what happens is they appoint 3 people to make an appraisal of the property, 2 of which those people have to have experience in home appraisal. So they essentially do a panel of 3 people. Those people are paid. The city will pay for that. Generally, it's $200 to $300 a person. They go out and do an appraisal of the property. Then they set a public hearing. The public hearing, I would arrive to talk to them about why I think this property may be worth X amount of dollars, or talk about, what the issues are with the property, why it has to be perhaps knocked down, whatever it may be. Interested parties can show up too, saying, hey, this house is a real gem and it should be worth far more. Okay. Generally, those public hearings do not take very long. I don't imagine in this scenario they will, because we don't know who or where most of the interested parties are. During that, to go back a little bit, to represent those parties that we may have an interest that we don't know exist, we have to appoint what's called a guardian ad litem. Guardian ad litem is an attorney to represent those unknown parties. That attorney may show up. They generally don't, especially in a situation like this, don't have a lot to fight over. All of that has to be done within 45 days. So they will set the next hearing for 45 days. If it takes longer and there's good cause, they can continue that for generally another 30 days, but they can get a continuance on that. After the appraisal process is done, that amount is determined and is actually then filed with the court. We get a copy of it. We then have to mail it out, putting all the interested parties on notice. Probably we'll have to then publicize again in the paper what that value is. So then what ends up happening is after that report is filed, we're starting to kind of wrap this up, hopefully. If someone believes that that property is worth more money, then they can file an appeal. Now, it doesn't actually go to the appeals court when they file that appeal. It actually goes directly to district court and is set for trial. And the trial will not be so much on whether or not the eminent domain is proper, but if that amount is proper. That is generally what extends these for longer periods of time, is when somebody believes, hey, my property is worth more. Now, case law, usually these types of situations, it has to do with the amount of acreage somebody's getting paid for. We're not in that type of a situation, okay? So there's not going to be a big back and forth argument that my farm acre, my 40 acres that you're taking from me is worth 10,000 an acre as opposed to, 8,000 an acre. We're dealing with a rather small piece of property, dilapidated, is going to have to be condemned. There's no question of that. So do I think there's going to be a big argument as to the value, the appraised value of it in an appeal? Anything can happen. More than likely, no. I don't see a big scenario where they're going to fight over the value of that, because really and truly, you don't have a lot of room there. Farm ground, acreage, stuff like that, you do have some more room to maybe battle over that. In the event they do appeal, generally we're looking at least 30 to 60 days until trial, sometimes longer. At this point in time right now, if I try to get in for a trial, well, put it to you this way, we're not having civil trials at this point in time until at least after the first of the year. We wouldn't even be at that point probably by then anyway, with the 45-day appraisal. I know we had talked about wanting to get this done as quick as possible. The more time I looked at it, there's no way to get it done this winter. So in the event there is no appeal, we go ahead and deposit the funds in the district court, and then I go ahead and do more paperwork to get that property transferred over to us legally. I think we have time for discussion. If you guys want to talk about it, if you want to think about it, and we can bring it back up next meeting, that's fine too. I'm asking that we go ahead and move forward and pass this resolution to go ahead and get this process started. An advantage that we have here is too, if we go ahead and get this process started, and let's say somewhere in the middle of this, property owner comes back and says, okay, fine, I'll sell it for this much if you'll do my quiet title action. We can actually abandon this. We are not locked in to do this eminent domain, okay? Really and truly what you can do sometimes is just don't file the next round of paperwork and the court will just dismiss it. I generally would file a motion to dismiss the proceedings, but we are not locked in by any means. So if something would come up, and sometimes actually what ends up happening is that appraised amount, they just say, okay, fine, or they come back and say, fine, I'll go ahead and you can give it to me for this much. And we just go ahead and do the transfer and we're good to go. Regardless, if the big issue here is these unknown folks that have potentially an interest in the property. I believe the last deed that was filed on this property was in like 1920 something, when the landowner's parents bought the home. And he has siblings who have since passed away who have children. So he, even though he owned the home, or even though he lived in the home, really truly probably doesn't have full property interest in that, because when his parents died, it appears they died without a will, from all we know. So it would have gone in equal shares to 3 siblings. There's 3 siblings, right? 2 siblings. Would have went half and half to them, but then that half that the sibling has that has now passed away would drop down to however many children that sibling had.
So point of clarification, there's 2 siblings, so 3 children total?
2 children.
2 children total. Sorry, I was thinking there was 3, but there's 2. So it doesn't necessarily make it any easier or complicated.
Well, is it a factor of 2 or a factor of 3?
Yeah, exactly. We still have to attempt to find these folks. So, I think we're at a point now where unfortunately this has gone on for a very long period of time. I think we probably need to go ahead and do what we kind of talked about having to potentially do for years. If you guys want to think about it, that's fine. I wanted to let you guys know kind of where we're at, and if you want to get the ball rolling, we have the resolution drafted for signature tonight. Well, Mark's not here, but whoever our pro tem is, so Chuck can sign it. Okay, I can even change. Do I need to change the signature block?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I think we've waited long enough, honestly. We've been thinking about this for over 3 years.
Okay.
So,
I would move to approve resolution 2020-2110.
second,
It's been moved by Keaton, seconded by Chrissy to approve resolution 2020-2110. Comment that I would make real quick, with some further discussion. I'm personally conflicted. I don't like eminent domain. I was really hopeful. I understand the need to move forward with this. Part of our moving forward with the TIF projects, as we identified in our budget, had been based on positive conversation earlier in the year. It remains my hope that the parties involved will find that it is much more agreeable to enter into a private agreement. That's certainly my hope. I don't like the idea of big bad government taking someone's property, but also we had a pretty square deal that's not been responded to since then. So my hope is that it won't come to this, but I do believe that we need to get the ball rolling to start the clock.
Well, and I think since you said we can drop it.
Yep.
Anytime.
Yeah. So, even if
feel better
Yeah.
about it that way.
Yeah, if Amy went and saw him tomorrow, or or just pops up and says, I signed it, can we go ahead and do this? The nice thing is I have most of the paperwork already drafted for the other proceeding, so I need his signature. We can move on with that. It takes time as well, but it won't be as tedious or potentially as expensive as what this would be. So my hope is that we can move forward. I think it would be beneficial for both parties, because the landowner runs a very strong risk of coming back with the appraiser saying this is worth significantly less than what you've been offered, at which point in time you're out of luck.
so let me just clarify that before we vote. So if we get those appraisals done and they do come in lower than what he's been offered, are we obligated to not go with what we had originally offered if
Yes.
he were to?
We do not have to. Part of that being, what we're dealing with right now is we made an offer and he accepted it. And then what he did was he came back and said, I want more. So then essentially, I don't know if he's seen what we've done now. It's been delivered, but essentially he's counter-offered his agreement, so there's nothing in there. So then what happens is once we move forward with this, the appraisal comes back, That's actually what our new offer is now. So his only
And it has
recourse,
to be that way?
well, doesn't have to. So if it came back and let's say, you know, we have this number, and it comes back 50% less on the appraisal, and he says, well, I want what you said you'd pay, and we decide that we have hearts of gold and we decide to do it, which I am going to strongly suggest you don't if we go that far in the process, because we will have expended time and money on that. We can do that because we can drop that proceeding at any point in time. In the event that he comes back, he doesn't like that number, I want the number that you guys gave me, and we say too bad, his only recourse in that situation is to appeal. And more than likely his appeal will not be successful because like I said, with acreage, you know, there's always been these big arguments. There's case law out of, I think it was Wyandotte. School district there wanted to buy a bunch of land. So they went to landowner, said, we need that 40 acres you have. We already bought your other 40 acres. Landowner says, well, I don't want to sell it. And they said, well, we either buy it or we'll have to go through eminent domain. They end up buying it for like $18,000 an acre. Well, what happens is though, they never develop it. They sell it to a developer for 3 times that amount. The other people came back and said, well, wait a second, we want compensated for that, and it's just, no, you're kind of out of luck when it comes to that. But there's also a lot of leeway in that. This is a small parcel. The value there, the wiggle room on that, I would be surprised if they didn't come back with the appraisal being less than what, you know, we've tried to offer him in the past. And I think we've been pretty clear on that anyway. So, but yes, I mean, at any point in time, you guys could say, hey, stop this. We'll take it in a different direction now. You can certainly do that. I would suggest if we get to that point where the appraisal's been done, we've had the public hearing and it's been filed with the court, I would suggest once we get to that point, we move forward. But anytime prior to that, I wouldn't argue about letting it go. So we do have some options.
We do have a motion, so any further discussion? All in favor of approving resolution 2020-2110, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Resolution passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to the action agenda, the minutes of the October 7th, 2020 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from October 7th, 2020.
Second?
It's been moved by Marcia, seconded by Chrissy to approve the minutes from the October 7th, 2020 meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Appropriation ordinance 19.
I would move to approve appropriation ordinance number 19.
Second.
It's been moved by Keaton, seconded by Marcia to approve appropriation ordinance 19. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Resolution 2020-2111, employee handbook changes.
Very few changes recommended this year. As you can see from the memo, 1.7 would just be a different way to distribute the handbook. Very few people really appreciate a 60-page document handed to them, so I've just started doing it on Jump Drive. And let's see. Oh, 3.17, we had it in there that we would pay out any final extras such as vacation on the payroll after the last payroll in order to be able to retrieve things like cell phones and all that. And Kansas law states that you must pay everything out on the last payroll after they have terminated. So you change that. And then under the holiday hours, that had always been that a part-time person receives half of the benefits such as vacation, sick leave, that kind of thing, which would be 4 hours a month. And the reason I wanted to change it is because I have a part-time person, but she works 5 hours a day. So when she took her first day, after she had started, we had I don't remember what holiday it was, but she said, so do I get 4 hours for that day? And I thought, well, that's not really fair because she works 5. So wanted to change that for that. That really mainly is for her. But if we had anybody that wanted to work 3 hours a day or however we do it, we would fall in line with that. Same thing with under the vacation leave, it's just the same deal there with her. And then under sick leave, last year you had approved the paying out a little bit of sick leave annually if someone has maxed out the 1,040 hours. And we just wanted to clarify when that would be paid out every year so that the employees would know. And that's it.
Any questions for Stacy?
I move to approve resolution 2111, sorry.
Second.
So moved by Christie and seconded by Keaton to approve resolution 2020-2111. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Resolution passes. Moving on to addendum 3 to the Next Tech Water Tower Lease Agreement.
Mayor and Commissioners, Craig Remus from Next Tech is here to present the request, and I believe that I emailed you out this addendum this afternoon and cover memo to kind of explain some background.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm with Next Tech Wireless. We've been on water tower now for quite some time. With Suez making the changes for painting the tower and stuff like that, there's a lot of requirements that are now coming into play. We got a quote back from them to make the changes so everything's within spec on the tower, which involves quite a bit of work and quite expensive, a lot more expensive than what we kind of planned on it to be in. I worked with Amy here and I sent out that addendum. What we were kind of hoping for is to kind of get a break on it for half of what we're gonna have to expense. We'll pay it all up front for all the expenses it's gonna take to change all this stuff. In exchange, I think we had 4 years at $0 rent to kind of offset some of that expense. I worked with management on it. At one time they were talking about just moving off the tower and going on the other cell phone tower that's right there, which I think we've been with you guys for quite a while now, and we figured it'd be better just to stay if we could work out, kind of this addendum to offset some of that price. I mean, we were really surprised on how much it costs to make these changes, so.
Will this be a recurring issue each time that they paint the tower?
No, so I've been working with that James Jackson or whatever, Suez. So all these changes, what it is, we got to get a messenger pipe that goes in the bottom. And so all these changes are going to be done. So then from now on, anytime they paint and everything like that, all our cables are in a tube or hanging. And to hang it, it has to be some type of weld, like a kind of a CAD weld or whatever it is on there. So it's that special welding. So a lot of the tower, that's why I think it's so expensive. There's not many people around that do that. I mean, we actually went through Suez to get a quote to do it because there's not many people around here that do it. And we've never had to do it on any of our towers, but I think it's with this painting and stuff. And they said it just has to constantly be updated with painting. Once they do this fix, everything's within spec then, and it won't run into that issue anymore. So.
Do we have anything showing what the cost of that was for the offset? Is that in there?
I didn't put it in there. It was
No, the cost, it was for Suez was 38,000 and some dollars. So when we do this, we got to replace all them cables. Well, you can't take them down and thread them back up the pipe. You got to use all brand new cables, which is approximately 30,000.
Okay.
So then that's not counting labor and stuff to do it.
Okay.
So we were kind of figuring, right around the 4 years is about a half breakdown of the expenses to do it. So yeah, we were quite surprised on, how much the modifications would take. But and then after that 4 years, then the rent just starts back like the normal lease, so it's.
So this being the first time that you guys have had to, I guess, wrestle with this, do you anticipate this being something that comes up with other water towers?
You know, we deal with Suez on a lot of the other water towers, but all the other ones, you know, when we go through, I mean, they paint and stuff like that. It's not I think we've never ran into this with Suez, and I think it's just a lot of it. I think is the fancy paint scheme, you know, because you know if they're just painted all blue, it's not that big an issue. That's what I see on it, but I don't know for sure. I mean,
So I thought that they changed back to a simple paint scheme.
Yeah.
they have changed back to a
Yeah.
simple paint scheme.
It's all white, it doesn't have to be the blue and orange, or white and orange.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, there's still, James is still requesting the, whatever that
There's
messenger
still-
pipe and all that stuff, so.
Still requesting the offset just to make it easier for them as they go through their maintenance. They don't have to work around all of the wires and all of the cables, and they're requesting it both of Next Tech and of US Cellular.
We haven't heard anything from US Cellular.
We have not.
Do we anticipate hearing from them if we move forward with an agreement here?
I don't know.
You know, I don't know if they've ran into this either. I mean, they possibly could, you know, because they're everywhere in a lot of big major cities, I suppose, but that's the first we've ran into this, so.
As Jeremy and I were talking about it, again, Next Tech's been a good partner with us. For us to be brutally honest, and it's passive income for us. We don't have to do anything. They sit on the tower, they use the space, and it's income into his department. So we feel like that's a good balance of our income streams, and so that's important to us. We didn't like the initial offers of going either 7 years with 0 payment or 14 with a partial payment. That's a long time to keep track of. And Amber and I were talking sometimes bread truck theory, we don't want to miss that opportunity and to make sure that gets back up to the 750. But 4 years seemed like a reasonable time to keep track of it. We know that the black and white language in the original lease says their sole expense, but I really felt like it was a lot of money to ask to change that over to.
Yeah, because when we initial, you know, they said we were gonna have to make the changes, like, oh, okay, yeah, and then we got that quote in. I know manager and everybody just about choked. It's like, I mean, it was quite a bit, you know, just expense right up front, and that's where they were just kind of debating, well, is it worth paying all this expense to do it, or take our stuff down and just go on the other tower that's right there, and we don't have all that upfront expense. So that's kind of where they came to offer, kind of ask for a little break on it.
Seems to be to kind of cement the two groups, because we're giving them something and they're still putting money in. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
I know that there's not an expense to the city. I can appreciate where you're all coming from, for sure.
Yeah.
That's probably a contract.
Have we looked anywhere else possibly to get a quote to see how off theirs may be?
We've looked around, there was a few other tower companies, and we kind of went over the numbers, and they were all like, that really could be pretty close.
Sure.
Yeah, that was our first thing, when we thought maybe they're just completely
Out
out of whack, you know, on it, but it's, you know, it's kind of a specialty type deal.
Right. I would move to approve the addendum 3 to the Next Tech water tower lease agreement.
second.
I have a motion from Keaton, seconded by Marcia. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Addendum passes.
Thank you
I
guys.
appreciate your
Thank
information.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, reports.
Just a few items. We did receive a very nice thank you note from the chamber for the donation of the tables. They really appreciate them, and our fire department, and I can't remember who else helped to haul those over in a day, and they were really appreciative of that labor as well. Community room update, you can kind of, the chamber room update, you can kind of see we're probably about 65% complete. We did have a slight, about 3-day delay on the painting, but we will get that picked back up and hope to be complete here sometime next week. But really appreciate you guys allowing us to do this. I think it really modernizes the space and makes it more flexible and more efficient for all of us. We are using our new equipment, new tables and chairs, new audiovisual equipment that was purchased with the Spark funds. And as you can see from the TVs, you're able to see the agenda from where you're sitting, which is a nice change. TVs for various vantage points throughout the room, and the picture clarity is a whole lot better. We really appreciate that as far as our recordings. We're continuing with the purchase of some of the Spark funds. Right now planning on the renovation of the police department lobby, taking out some of their soft surfaces and replacing them with hard surfaces to help be able to do more cleanability and more sanitation efforts right now. That's all that I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Any other staff reports?
I'll mention real quickly, we do have drug take back this Saturday at Walmart from 10 to 2.
Going off of what Amy's talking about in the newspaper today in history, 50 years ago, Concordia City Commission conducted its first meeting in the new commission room on the second floor of City Hall. So now we're in an updated room today.
Other staff? All right. Marcia? Just would like to comment on, where we adjourned to see the animal shelter and the wastewater treatment plant. Those are functions of our city that we don't get to see very often, but it continues to reinforce how proud I guess I am, knowing how dedicated our staff are to the work they do, hearing the labor that fire department being willing to take over the equipment, and it's just a really great place to be. I think a lot of times when I venture over to the news, which I do less and less, it makes me very happy and very content knowing we live where we do. So I appreciate the staff and everything you do day in and day out, the passion that you serve with. It's impressive. You can tell it's more than just a job, and that's fantastic. All right. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to a study session to discuss the animal control ordinance.
I move to adjourn to a study session to discuss the animal control ordinance.
Second. So moved by Christie and seconded by Keaton to adjourn to a study session to discuss the animal control ordinance. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned to the study session. We need to take a break.